My name is Audrey, and I am 67 years old. This story starts with a suitcase, a simple one, and a heart full of fragile hope. My son Daniel had booked a family vacation at a fancy resort in Arizona, a place called the Oasis Springs. It was his attempt to bring us all closer after his father passed. I was so looking forward to a whole week with him and my 5-year-old granddaughter, Lily. I even dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, the tension between me and my daughter-in-law, Chloe, might finally ease. But the moment we stepped into that glittering marble lobby, her eyes swept over my comfortable cotton dress and my worn-out luggage, and that hope began to feel very, very thin. The drive from the airport was a masterclass in subtle one-upmanship. Chloe, from the passenger seat, narrated a stream of facts about the Oasis Springs, the infinity pool with the mountain view, the spa that used some rare gemstone in their treatments, the restaurant with a chef who had a Michelin star. Each detail was delivered with a glance in the rearview mirror, her eyes meeting mine for just a second, as if checking to see if I was properly impressed. I was busy helping Lily with her coloring book. Daniel, my sweet, well-meaning son, tried to keep the peace. Sounds amazing, honey. Mom, you're going to love the pool. Very relaxing. I'm sure I will, I said, smiling at Lily's scribbled son. When the resort finally appeared, it was like a mirage. Pale stone buildings, lush green landscaping against the desert brown in windows that reflected the vast Arizona sky. It was beautiful, but it felt distant, like a postcard. Chloe practically floated out of the rental car, adjusting her large sunglasses. I hauled my trustworthy old suitcase out of the trunk, its wheel giving a familiar squeak. Inside the lobby, the air was cool and scented of lavender. Chloe marched to the front desk with an air of ownership. I lingered, taking in the high ceilings, feeling a little small. Lily held my hand tightly. The young man at the desk was polite. Welcome to the Oasis Springs. Name for the reservation. Daniel Wilson, my son said, putting an arm around Chloe. We have 2 adjoining suites booked ocean view. Before the clerk could even type, Chloe placed a manicured hand on the counter. Actually, she said, her voice sweet as syrup, could we make a change for my mother-in-law's room? Maybe a garden view suite would be better. The oceanfront ones can be quite stimulating, loud, probably not ideal for someone needing a more peaceful environment. She smiled at me, all fake concern. The words hung in the chilled air. Someone, not Mom, not Audrey. Someone, a person who couldn't handle stimulation. Daniel shifted his weight, his smile faltering. Oh, honey, I think Mom would like the view. Nonsense, Chloe chirped. The gardens are exquisite, so serene. It's perfect, really. Her eyes challenged me to disagree. I felt a familiar knot tighten in my stomach. The hope for a harmonious vacation cracked audibly. The garden view is fine. I said, my voice quieter than I intended. I just wanted to get to a room. In the elevator, the silence was heavy. Chloe examined her reflection in the mirrored walls. Daniel stared at the floor numbers lighting up. I watched them both, this son of mine and the woman who made him shrink. Lily, sensing the mood, hugged my leg. Chloe caught my eye in the reflection, and her lips curved into a small, satisfied smile. The message was clear. This was her territory, and I was just a visitor who needed to be managed. The first dinner was at the hotel's flagship restaurant, all white tablecloths and crystal glasses. Chloe ordered for the table, explaining each wine pairing with theatrical flair. When I picked up my fork, she leaned over, gently touching my wrist. "A little tip, Mom. Here we rest the fork on the middle finger. See? Like this. It's more refined." She demonstrated her movements, exaggerated. My cheeks warmed. "I've been eating with a fork for 67 years, dear. I think I manage." "Of course," she said, pulling back, but her smirk remained. "It's just different in places like this." Later, she commented on my dress. "That pattern is so cheerful, very vintage. I love that you wear what makes you comfortable." The backhanded compliment was her specialty. She dominated the conversation, with stories of her business trips to New York, name-dropping hotels and clients, a world entirely foreign to my life in Ohio. Daniel nodded along occasionally, throwing me an apologetic look. I mostly listened, cutting Lily's chicken into small pieces. The next day at the pool, I found a shaded lounger and pulled out the yarn to knit a sun hat for Lily. The bright colors against the stark hotel whiteness felt like a personal rebellion. Chloe approached with 2 colorful drinks adorned with tiny umbrellas. She handed one to me, her voice carrying across the pool deck. "You have to try this, Mom. It's a dessert blossom. Might be a bit modern for your palate, but think of it as a cultural experience." A couple of women nearby in designer swimsuits glanced over and giggled. The humiliation was a physical heat on my skin. I took the glass, placed it on the table next to me without taking a sip, and went back to my knitting. "Thank you, Chloe. It's lovely." My hands trembled slightly, but the needles kept clicking a steady, defiant rhythm. That night, the walls proved thin. I was reading in my room when I heard raised voices from next door. Daniel's strained. "You don't have to correct her all the time, Chloe. It's embarrassing." Chloe's laugh was sharp, tinny through the wall. "Embarrassing, Daniel. She's a country mouse. She embarrasses me. She didn't even know how to download the spa app. Look at her suitcase, for God's sake. Next time, let's not bring her to places like this. She doesn't belong." Each word was a tiny pinprick, 100 pinpricks, deflating something inside me. I put my book down, the words a blur. I cried then silent tears for my late husband, Robert, who would have never let anyone speak to me that way, and for the son who heard it, and from what I could tell, did nothing to stop it. I thought about packing my things and catching the first flight home. But then I thought of Lily's small hand in mine, and I stayed. The breaking point came the next morning in the grand lobby. We were supposed to meet for a guided nature walk. I was a few minutes late because Lily couldn't find her favorite hair clip. And of course, Grandma helped look. When we hurried to the front desk, where Daniel and Chloe were waiting, a scene was already unfolding. Chloe was speaking to the young desk clerk, and a man in a suit, a manager of some sort. Her voice pitched high with complaint. "And the charges on the minibar are absolutely incorrect. We only had 2 sparkling waters. I'm very careful about these things." The manager was nodding apologetically. Then Chloe saw me. Her eyes lit up with a cruel opportunity. She turned to the staff, gesturing broadly at me as I approached. "Oh, here comes my mother-in-law. Audrey now, Mom's sweetie," she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness for an audience. "We were just sorting out the minibar. Listen, in the future, just leave the minibar alone. Okay? It's all very expensive stuff. Let Daniel or me order anything you need. We don't want any more confusion." She paused, letting the word confusion hang in the air, then gave a light tinkling laugh, looking directly at the hotel manager, as if sharing a joke about the foibles of the elderly. Senior moments, you know how it is. You have to keep an eye on them. The world narrowed to that spot on the polished floor. The clerk looked mortified. The manager was frozen in professional discomfort. Daniel's face flushed a deep, shameful red, his mouth opening and closing silently. Lily looked up at me, her little brow furrowed in worry, squeezing my fingers. This was no longer subtle digs or private contempt. This was a public execution of my dignity, a deliberate move to paint me as a doddering, troublesome old woman in front of strangers. The heat of shame was instantly replaced by a cold, clear calm. The last thread of my patience, worn thin over days, finally snapped. But it didn't make a loud noise. It went silent. Without a word, I reached into my practical woven handbag. My fingers closed around my cell phone, an older model that Chloe had scoffed at. I saw her notice it, saw the faint, derisive curl of her lip. She thought I was flustered, maybe calling Daniel for help. I unlocked it, scrolled past photos of Lily and my garden, and found the contact saved simply as Henderson, Oasis, Springs, Mongar. Robert had insisted I have it years ago when they finalized the purchase. "For emergencies, Audrey," he'd said. I never dreamed this would be the emergency. I put the phone to my ear. The small crowd watched, puzzled. Chloe's mocking smile was still in place. The line rang twice. "Henderson speaking." The voice was professional, brisk. "Hello, Henderson. This is Audrey Wilson." My voice was steady low and carried a tone I hadn't used in years. The tone I used when discussing business with my husband. "I am in the main lobby right now. There is a small matter that requires your attention. Please come down here within 5 minutes." I ended the call and slipped the phone back into my bag. I looked at Chloe, who was now blinking in confusion. "What was that about?" she asked her, laughter gone, replaced by a nervous edge. "Who did you just call the handyman?" She tried to laugh again, but it fell flat. I didn't answer. I simply looked at her, my expression unreadable, then bent down to adjust the strap on Lily's sandal. "Ready for our walk, sweet pea?" I asked my granddaughter, my voice warm just for her. The waiting minutes were the longest of my life, yet I felt perfectly still inside. Daniel was staring at me as if he'd never seen me before. Chloe shifted her weight, her confidence visibly leaking away under the pressure of the unknown. Exactly. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors across the lobby chimed open. A man in an impeccably tailored navy suit, his hair silvered at the temples, strode out. He was followed by 2 assistants. He moved with a purpose that cut through the space, his eyes scanning the lobby before locking onto me. He walked right past Daniel, past a now pale Chloe, and came to a stop directly in front of me. He gave a slight, respectful bow of his head. "Mrs. Wilson, It is an honor to finally meet you in person. Is everything to your satisfaction? His voice was deep, filled with a genuine deference that was utterly foreign to the scene. You could have heard a pin drop on the plush carpet. Daniel's jaw was slack. Chloe's face, once flushed with superiority, was draining of all color, leaving a sickly beige. I gave Mr. Henderson a small, acknowledging nod. Then I turned my gaze to my daughter-in-law. Henderson, this is my daughter-in-law, Chloe, I said, my voice calm and clear, carrying to every ear in the vicinity. She seems to have some concerns about the service and a significant misunderstanding regarding my status here. She seems to believe I am merely a guest, an inconvenient one at that. Would you be so kind as to clarify for her, and for everyone present, the ownership structure of the Oasis Springs? Mr. Henderson turned to Chloe. His demeanor remained professionally polite, but his words were granite. Ma'am, there appears to be a profound misunderstanding. The Oasis Springs Resort is part of the Wilson family investment portfolio. The sole legal owner, as per the last will and testament of the late Mr. Robert Wilson, is Mrs. Audrey Wilson, your mother-in-law. He paused, letting the words sink in. She is not a guest. This is her property. The reaction was instantaneous. Chloe made a small, choked sound, like the air had been punched from her lungs. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock and dawning horror darted from Henderson's stern face to my calm one, then to Daniel, seeking an escape that did not exist. Daniel looked down at his shoes, a mixture of profound shame and stunned realization on his face. The desk clerk stood ramrod straight, his eyes wide. The few other guests in the lobby had stopped pretending not to listen. I watched the truth dismantle Chloe's entire world. Her social standing, her condescension, her sense of superiority. It all crumbled to dust in that air-conditioned silence. I did not have them thrown out. That would have been theatrical, and I am not a theatrical person. Instead, I addressed Mr. Henderson. I believe my family requires some privacy to discuss this. Could you please arrange for us to have lunch in the private management conference room? Yes, immediately, Mrs. Wilson. He gestured, and one of his assistants sprang into action. The walk to the conference room was a silent procession of the utterly defeated. Chloe walked like a puppet with its strings cut. Daniel kept his head down. Lily, bless her, just held my hand tighter, confused but trusting. In the quiet, wood-paneled room, a simple lunch was laid out. I waited for the staff to leave. I looked at my son first. Daniel, I am deeply disappointed. Not in your wife's cruelty, that is her character to own, but in your silence. A man who does not defend his mother from open disrespect, especially from his own spouse, has forgotten where he came from. Tears welled in his eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to cause a scene. She caused the scene, I said quietly. You allowed it. I then turned to Chloe, who would not meet my eyes. Chloe, real wealth has never been about designer labels or knowing which fork to use. It is about character. It is about respect. It is about kindness. You have shown me a profound lack of all three. You may scorn my vintage dress, but you will never again scorn me." I took a sip of water. "You may both stay for the remainder of your vacation. However, Lily and I will be moving to the owner's villa for privacy. I suggest you use this time to reflect on everything." It was not an explosive victory. It was a quiet, firm repositioning of the universe according to the actual facts. The rest of the week, I saw Chloe only at a distance. She looked diminished, anxious, jumping at the sight of any staff member. The performance was over. Daniel made several attempts to apologize, and we had some painful, necessary talks. The wound with Chloe, I knew, would never fully heal. Some disrespect poisons the well forever. After we returned home, the dust slowly settled. Daniel's apologies became more thoughtful, less about soothing his own guilt, and more about understanding his failure. Our relationship began a slow, careful mending. With Chloe, an uneasy, distant truce settled in. She was never rude again, but her manner was now stiff cautious, forever shadowed by the knowledge of her own miscalculation. For me, the healing came from an unexpected place ownership. I realized that in hiding my life in being the quiet, simple widow, I had almost given permission for the world to underestimate me. I started taking a more active role. I had monthly calls with Mr. Henderson. I reviewed plans for a new spa wing. It wasn't about the money. It was about engaging with a part of the life Robert and I had built together. Mostly, I poured my heart into my time with Lily. I taught her to knit. We planted a vegetable garden. I told her stories about her grandfather, the man with the quiet strength who built things that lasted. The pain of Chloe's betrayal softened not into forgiveness for her, but into a peaceful certainty about myself. I knew my worth. It wasn't tied to a hotel or a bank account. It was tied to my dignity, which I had finally, calmly reclaimed. The lesson I learned wasn't about revenge or flaunting wealth. It was about never underestimating someone based on their exterior. And more importantly, it was about boundaries. You can choose silence for a long time, but when basic respect is breached, standing up calmly, firmly, with the truth and your own integrity as your shield, that is real power. Sometimes the most expensive lesson a person learns comes not from a lecture, but from the collapse of their own prejudices. To this day, I still knit hats for Lily, and that old phone, I keep it. It reminds me that a person's true value is never in the things you can see. If you have ever been put down by someone and then found the strength to stand up for yourself, I want to hear your story. Please share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonates with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message of self-respect. Thank you for listening and for being with me. May you always find peace and strength within yourself.